Hi, and welcome to this video series, How to Solve Enterprise AI, with me, Errol Koolmeister, Executive AI and Data Advisor, and
me, Luka Crnkovic-Friis, CEO and founder of Peltarion.
Welcome to the seventh and the final episode in this video series. Today we'll be speaking about what makes some companies standing out when delivering with AI. Luka, what do you say? Do you have any explicit examples, potentially, of some companies standing out when delivering on AI and some of the key attributes of that?
Yes, I think it was the sort of common thread has been a commitment on a relatively central level to do something concrete. And then to find out the people in the different business areas, different departments who are willing to be the first ones to actually go out and do things and get the use cases in production. Of course, in our cases, sort of the enabling bit has been the platform that has sort of tied it together. What about you?
No, I think it's a good question, and I think it always lands with the company and the ambition levels of that companies. If you take a look at companies like DeepMind, for instance, they're heavily focused on research. So of course it makes sense for them, and their key success factor is producing tangible output with those researching factors. But that's not exactly transferable into large enterprises unless the goal itself is to produce research. So even though I've spoken to many enterprises and they say, oh, we want to be like Google DeepMind, my usual reply is, really? Is that what you want to do? So the example here is really about how do you become successful. All starts with yourself as a company and setting that clear strategy, as we spoke about in an earlier episode.
Agree. And I fully agree that it makes no sense just to imitate Google or some other these companies unless you're actually aiming to do exactly what Google is doing overall. Rather, the AI should be more focused around your actual use cases and so on. And it's seldom going to be about advanced research and algorithms. It's more going to be about organization and sort of structuring it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very important statement as well. On the other hand as well, when you're looking at things like ethics, for instance, when you talk about responsible AI, it's almost like those are becoming more of an hygiene factor, and I'm really thankful for that as well. But is that a key success factor these days of successfully delivering not just the results, but the ethical frameworks around it as well?
Yes, I do, and I do think it's important that there's some sort of centralized force doing this. I think the first attempt that most enterprises did was to get the data science departments to be responsible from everything from the actual implementation of everything to ethics and education and so on. And that doesn't really work because it doesn't scale, but there are aspects of it that does scale. And I think sort of tying the whole bag together, everything from architecture and technology to ethics and so on, it is really good to have a sort of centralized component.
And I think that going back to the title is what makes some companies stand out is what we're discussing here. It's about the bigger picture. It's not just about a use case. I've seen so many presentations in so many conferences where companies stand and say, we did one use case, it was super good. Then my follow-up is always, I can be very, very snotty sometimes, is, so what? How are you implementing this? And how are you making sure? And how do you think about the bigger picture? Because it's not just about the results from one thing. It's about transforming and changing these type of companies.
Yes. Then, I mean, you're coming now from H&M, which is, in our experience, a fairly advanced company when it comes to organization and in terms of AI. So you've come much further than your average enterprise companies who's still struggling with their first use cases or that may have some randomly developed detached one. And I think there are a couple of different steps. I think the first step is going from nothing to getting something with value. Yep. So not just a proof of concept that's died, but getting some value. Once you start getting there, the next step is going to be, okay, now we have 10 of these. How do we go to 100? How do we go to 1,000 and so on?
No, it's interesting. I mean, it becomes also an upskilling of the entire organization, not just a very advanced department.
Absolutely.
I think even though the thing we built at H&M is seemed as very advanced, and it was the team, but then the entire organization needs to start organizing and understanding and upskilling. So I think it is hard, and it's very cross-functional, and it requires to think about your strategy, get your ducks in a row, and start executing on that. It's not a one-man show. It's not a 10-man show. It's so much bigger than that.
I think generally speaking, the sort of what has been leading in most cases is successful use cases. And with successful, it means that it adds value to the business, and it does it in such a way that the organization understands. So it's not just that it's a good use case, it's also a use case that many in the organization can understand. It
becomes a part of communication. It's important with delivery. It's important on focusing on value. But if nobody knows what you're doing, the good things that are happening, both internally and externally, to communicate and potentially help with your recruitment strategy, you're going to fail, because there is so much noise out there. And it is cutting through that and being communicative about what you're doing that's going to be a key differentiator, in my opinion, as well.
So what do you say in your experience, like for instance here in the Nordics, we have enterprises are relatively, shall we call it, democratic, or you have input at many different levels in the company. So how do you coordinate both from the sort of top-down strategy to the hands-on business users who are actually going to use this and get value from it?
I wish you had something easier, because it's so hard in large organization. It boils down to how you organize around these things. Who do you empower with taking decisions? Who is accountable for the deliverers? Switching the mindset into from how into what instead. So it's rather a communicative exercise where the strategic development of the large organization falls on the C-suite and the kind of the closest manager there. And implementation of strategic decisions and tactical decisions falls down to the delivery teams. So they get the opportunity to form their own future. I think being successful in the delivery mechanism will make you stand out in delivering with AI and technology and in business in general. So it's a big picture type of thing here.
I agree. It's complex, and it's more complex with AI than it is, for instance, with software, because you don't have a guaranteed result.
No.
You don't know how long it will take. You don't know what you'll get out, and that makes it far more complex. You could have a sort of textbook execution of a use case, and it may fail because the data wasn't good enough in the end, and you get no business value.
So it's more important to organize how you actually start new things up and getting more things out. Yeah. And when you find value, you scale it out. The processes around how to do that. We're almost coming to an end of this final episode. In summary, in this episode, it's really about how do you organize and what makes some companies standing out. So the summary and the conclusion of this is that you need to think about the bigger picture. You need to find something that's more fit for purpose for you. Don't just copy. Think about your strategic approach into doing these things as well. Upskilling of the entire organization will be crucial in order for you to actually get things out there. Communication, key success factors. Talk about the things you're doing. Rather start early than in the end. Making sure there's ongoing communication, both about the struggles in getting things out, but also about the success things. People like to hear these things, and they'll commit more to your cause and make sure that you are successful. People are more helpful than you think, so transparency is a big key here. Cross-functional insights and cooperations really sparks innovation. This is not just a data science game. This is not just an engineering game. This is not just a centralized silo. This is the company's business. Thank you so much for listening. I'm hoping you enjoyed this series and looking forward to welcome you to the event.
November 25th here in Stockholm.